Jumbo. See Jumbo. That's just hello in Swahili. Let me thank my beloved wife, the Reverend Dr. Nina Bryant Sanyika, for getting me here this morning and watching over me and as I go through the process of preaching. You know, she is a preacher in her own right. And every time I hear her preach, I just fall in love all over again. It bees like that. So thank you, Reverend Dr. Nina Bryant Sanyika, for being with us this morning. Can we show our appreciation for her for coming? Thank you. How's everybody doing today? Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Last time I was here, I had to get y'all up out of your seats and Jolie got this little light of mine and got y'all moving yourselves around, and we were having a good old time. We almost found ourselves in one of those hallelujah kinds of churches. You know, you don't worship in that way, but to be truly multicultural, you must learn to worship in different ways that different people worship. Because everybody does not find their spirit through their intellect alone, but through their heart. I've always said about UUism, which I respect very deeply and profoundly because it changed the trajectory of my life when I was a teenager. I am not an active member right now. I am what they call UU adjacent. That means you're close, but that's about as close as you're probably going to get. But there are a lot of us like that because one of the things that the denomination has had difficulty doing is reconciling the question of race and ethnicity within its midst. It's unfortunate in its history. It has made tremendous progress addressing and resolving the gender issue with women and the issue of sexual orientation. But when those of us who were here in the 60s tried to get in to resolve the problems and the contradictions of race and social power, it was unable to do that, which caused a deep fissure in the soul of the church, and some of it is still not yet healed after all this time. Though progress has been made because there is the Black UU organization, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, called BLUE, and I am one of their elders. So they give me a whole lot of play and respect sometimes. So when I get a chance to talk to them, they say, "Oh, thank you, Baba." But after I've spoken with you, I can go back and tell them. But they got up and said, "Ashe, hallelujah." But anyway, it's good to be back with you. Last time I was here, I enjoyed myself immensely, and I hope you got something out of that sermon. I hope you can get something out of the one that I am going to share with you this morning as well. The subject matter of this one was titled, "We shall know them by their fruit." We shall know them by their fruit. This was inspired by Jesus and his ministry when he was trying to help his own constituents understand the problem of false prophets and the impact that false prophets had on their own spiritual development and their ability to recognize what was truthful and what was just fantasy or fiction. Because what he was trying to teach his people about justice and about liberation was an enormously difficult task because they were living under oppression, the Roman Empire, and some of them wanted him to be a savior God who would lead them into physical war battle against the Roman Empire. Some others thought what he could do is resolve some of the misbehavior and the improper interpretation of Scripture that the religious leaders were engaged in. So he was not liked very much by some of his own people, and he certainly was not liked very much by the Romans. Reminds me of when I was my younger civil rights days, when I knew and was working with Dr. King, where we always wanted him to move faster than he was moving. And we wanted him to confront the system directly sometime. We wanted him to be like a general taking us into battle, because some of us thought that that's only way it was going to happen, that love was not going to change the behavior of racist segregationists. We didn't think it was going to happen then, and I'm not sure it will happen now. But when you live in an oppressed environment, you have a whole bunch of thinking that's different from folks who don't live in oppressed environments. If you don't know what it means to have your humanity crushed, or guessed sect all over, if you have not been in a situation where every day of your life you have to always look around you into the environment that you are in and see who is doing what. If you have not lived in that environment, you have a certain way that you look at the world, and may be a little different from the way other people look at the world. That's a simple matter of saying, I perhaps have not had your experience, but I'm willing to accept your understanding of your experience. That's how we get along with each other. And that's how you continue to be an ally in the struggle to get good fruit. So what is this I'm talking about, good fruit? Who is the them? Who is the we? And what is the fruit all about? Well, the we that shall know them are all of us, including yourselves, who have made the commitment to love and liberate human beings, who have an inherent value, worth, and dignity that has been endowed by the Creator. That's something that cannot be allocated or toyed with by humanity. So, those of us who have consciously committed ourselves to pursue or to live a life of justice, freedom, and democracy, those of us who are trying to build a world of the future in this country, where people can learn to live together in harmony and in peace, regardless of which demographic slot they fit into. That's the we. That's you. If that's not you, let me know. We'll talk about it afterwards. But let's assume that it is, and there are others like yourselves in other religious denominations. I mean, you have always claimed a special place in the order of Protestant behavior and thinking, but there ain't enough you use to solve this problem. We need a whole bunch of other conscious people to be that new instrument of transformation. So the we here is in our hands. Well, then who is the them? We shall know them. Who is the them? Who is the they? The them and the they are those who have committed themselves to the notion that somehow they are better than the rest of us. Either they think it or they do it. But it's in their system, emotionally, psychologically, And then it gets physical. They make the assumption that their humanity has more worth and value than the humanity of people who don't look like them, who don't live where they live, and don't always behave the way they do. That's the them. Now you're asking, well, where does the fruit fit in? Well, what is the fruit? What we are suggesting here is that the fruit from the vine is the result of good soil, good planting, good cultivation, good air, good sunlight, good rain. All of you in here who are gardeners, you know about that. I know my wife every day has to check her garden to see if it got all of what it needs, or is it still operative and functioning? And you know, Texas has some weird soil. I don't know how it got like that on the planet, because nowhere else on the planet do I find the soil like we find it here. But anyway, the fruit can only be produced if you have all the right conditions. So what are the conditions we're talking about to make good fruit? Well, it is said somewhere in the text that thought without action and beliefs without action and concepts without action sometimes have little value. That if the idea is not made operational, if there's no evidence that what you are proclaiming you are doing, it has limited value to transform the them and to continue to inspire the we. So we have to always be asking ourselves about the fruit. Do we have it? Do we have the evidence of it? How do we assist it? How do we love it along into some even more productive expression? Because faith without works is what? Faith without works is dead. For those of you who grew up in Protestant churches, you know that's in the book, right? But it's such a profound statement, such a simple and direct statement. What you believe is not worth very much if it is not put into practice. The fruit is the practice. The fruit is the product. It is the evidence of the labor you have done to transform the human condition so that it may be more consciously connected with infinity and the transcendent. For some of you, that might be God. But it doesn't have to be any of the known ways that we try to explain our relationship to the transcendent. You can just say it and never have one line of systematic theology to explain it. As a matter of fact, you probably don't know what systematic theology is and probably don't care very much. But in this process of the relationship between us and them and the fruit, there are all sorts of things that come in between that affect how we manifest the work that we do. You know, some places want to have the luxury of preaching to people, gospelizing to people, and have the most gorgeous worship that you could ever have. And folks leave the church and say, boy, we had good church today. Yeah. Well, what happened at church? I don't remember, but I know we had good church. Or the preacher sure preached a good sermon today. What did he say? I don't remember, but it sure was a good sermon. I hope you never say that when I come here to preach. I hope you remember something that I said that you can take home But I'm saying that there are different ways that the faith community approaches this issue of producing fruit that's different from the way other people might choose to do that, especially people who are like the UUs, who have intellectually developed and designed their theological understandings that are only clarified with someone who uses their intellect frequently. UUism is a religion of the mind. But what we're saying here is not only is the mind useful, but we need the heart to complement the mind. We need the place where love comes from, and love informs thought, which then guides action. So we need some equilibrium in all of this. We need some balance as we go through this journey. When we look at what kind of fruit we want to produce, we have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. We have to start with ourselves. Are you, in your own walk, your own journey, your own spiritual journey, are you an agent of transformation yourself? Do you have deeds? Do you have the fruit, the deeds, the action, the practices that you think are relevant to help the human family to transform itself? Do you have a practice commensurate with what you think and what you say and what you believe and what you proclaim? Because thought without practice can be useless, just as faith without work can be useless. So you have to ask yourself, what are you doing in the journey? And what is the contribution that you yourself are making in your own life? And you have to be willing to say, self, I didn't do that one right. And there's no shame in this equation from the we to the them and the fruit. There is no shame in acknowledging within the self that I am an imperfect being. Imperfect. But I am on a journey, and there are many bumps in the road. There are sometimes detours in the journey. Sometimes I might even get lost and don't know where I am. But my mind and my heart, when they are working syncretically together, will guide you back to the right path if you open your intellect to what your heart is telling you. And you let your heart use your mind appropriately. You see, the spiritual journey that we're all on uses all of the capacities that we have been created with. We're not fully human if we leave out the heart, if we leave out the soul, if we just want to use the mind all the time. But the mind is a good thing if you know how to use it. And so in this journey that we're on right now, I want to offer 3 case studies that I think show what kind of fruit we may be able to produce. The first of these was this past week. We all had, I think, a very transformative experience at the Democratic Party's convention. Okay. I'm glad to hear. I was about to say, well, I guess Reverend Nina and I have to say our share to this by ourselves, but I'm kind of glad that somebody heard that. Because it wasn't just a meeting, folks. It was a transformative experience, because what I think I saw was the new humanity becoming. I saw humanity trying to find itself, to reconcile itself, to understand itself better, and to prepare the way for what's coming in 2050, in which the majority population will be people of color, and in conjunction with progressive Anglos, that is to say people of European descent, who wish to do so in an alliance, will be the new democracy. That's what I think I saw. I saw an unequivocal example of women being in the leadership and in charge, and ain't no brothers were objecting. Put the women in charge. There is a video called that, by the way, Put the Women in Charge, remix. You can get it on YouTube. It's really a nice piece of music. It's called Put the Women in Charge, and it's just ooh-wee. Feels good. Well, okay, put a woman or two women. That's all right with me. You know. Put them all in charge. I'm okay with that. You do what you can do for the struggle, and whatever they do better than we just need to admit that and not argue about it. But anyway, I saw that. I saw generations, people crossing generation lines. I saw people, all kinds of genders and orientations and ideological positions. All different kinds of faith groups were there. And I didn't see evidence of anybody fighting and squabbling and acting incorrectly with each other. I saw people in a harmonious environment trying to lay the groundwork for the new humanity becoming. So to me, that's a good example of why we haven't lost this battle to those thems who want to see a different kind of world. I saw a collection of people who want to affirm love in action, justice, freedom, and democracy. The other group of people who are seeking the presidency do not articulate that statement at all. If they ever have, I haven't heard it. But it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't believe it. There's no evidence that that's the kind of world they are seeking. But at this gathering, it seemed to me that the direction of what people wanted to do was to be that new humanity. And we're calling all of us to that task through the political process, which is usually a surprise, because usually that's not what political processes do. Political processes focus on election and public policy. But something was different here. There was a different, nuanced spirit about all of this. And it just felt immensely good. I felt comfortable that I didn't have to ask the question my wife asked me, which was, will we have to stay or leave the United States? And I felt good about saying, I think we can make it. I think we got a chance with what just happened. So to me, that's just another journey along the way that says we have some good fruit. We just have to cultivate it and make sure that all the corrupt soil and the thistles, the things that get in the way of growth, that we get them out of the way and make sure that we can do everything that we can do for these fruit to mature. A second one is the Black Humanist Fellowship. That's an organization that I helped to form back in the 60s. And it is an organization whose focus is exclusively on liberation of people from oppression, Black people in all oppressed humanity. That is its mission. And it called itself that back in 1969 and 74 when it was being organized. But it had a spell where it was the only institution in the country that was calling itself Black Humanist. There was a long period where we were the only ones doing that, but around the 80s, another group of people emerged, affiliated with the American Humanist Association, were calling themselves Black Humanists, but they were secular humanists. That meant that they were not people who had a concept of God. that wasn't where they were. We didn't have any problem with that's where they were, if that's where they chose to be, because we believe everybody has the right to be somewhere in the spectrum. The question is, how do you implement whatever your belief systems are, whatever your doctrines are, whatever your theories are, how do you liberate them on the ground where people are suffering and oppressed? How are you doing what Jesus just preached about, which is one thing? Are you doing what they're doing in Ma'at? Bringing justice, truth, order, harmony. How are you doing that? I know you got a grand theory, but what are you doing on the ground? In the Black Humanist Fellowship, we said we are working to liberate people, and you may join us if that's what your priority is. We are not trying to reconcile the theological problems that everybody has. And it's okay that people have them. But we were saying that's not what we mean by Black humanism. We had people in the organization who were Christian, who were Muslim, who were Hebrew Israelites, who were nuns, N-O-N-E, not N-U-N-S, but N-O-N-E, none, weren't affiliated with any particular kind of religion. And ATR, African Traditional Religions. We had a diversity of people. Some of them were with churches and mosques, some were not. And many of us had our questions about Orthodox, traditional Christian worship, theology, practice, and the very church itself, which is why some of us had left the Orthodox Church, because we had grown to a point where we needed the church to be doing something other than what it was doing back in the 60s. It's changed immensely since then. And let me just say to everybody assembled here, I am a product of the Black church. I honor it, I respect it. That's where I come from. My daddy comes from the Black church. My grandpa comes from the Black church. My uncles, my mama, my sisters, my brothers, everybody I know that I call family has had an affiliation with the Black church. So I don't take that as something that some people want to say was just backward, because it didn't do everything that it could have done. But it did what it could. Now, oftentimes it made mistakes. But we were not going to try to place those mistakes at the foot of some deity. We refused to do that. We said that is a human problem, and humans are capable of solving their problems. Humans made the problems, humans can solve the problems. Now, if you want to add something else to that spiritually, that's okay. But we cannot deny the objective reality that the suffering that we have experienced came from and comes from human behavior. It doesn't come because some deity sitting in the sky somewhere don't like black people. Because, that's one of the theses that was out there. God ain't on our side. Nor does this get reconciled by just denouncing the entirety of the black church and black religion. I would never do that. I am critical of what needs to be criticized, but I would not do that. And I discourage other people from doing that, and that's what we did in the Black Humanist Fellowship. And it has lasted to this day, and we are calling it liberation humanism, a whole new term in the conversation. Everything has got some sort of humanism before its name now. But we're calling ours liberation humanism because that's what we do. And we are influenced by the tradition of African humanism, especially the Akans in Ghana. If you get some time, go read up about African humanism, because it has a way of blending the notions of the divine with the reality of the human condition. And it doesn't get itself all tangled up and confused with the way Western theologians tend to do that. And so there are a whole group of African thinkers who have done something and written something about humanism, but American humanists don't even mention them. It's like they don't exist. So we say we have to correct some of these flaws in thinking and in practice, and we're glad that we were able to do that. And we can work with anybody who wants to promote the liberation of black people and other oppressed people. We can work with anybody who wants to do that, including those who would tell you they don't believe in a God. That's fine. What do you want to do? That's the question. So the Black Humanist Fellowship is a case study. And the third case study, which is one that I like and is important to me, is what has happened within Unitarian Universalism. Because you have now adopted, not only did you adopt the eighth principle in your congregations, but you have now added Article 2 to your Constitution and bylaws. That just happened at the recent GA. Though 14% of the delegates voted against doing so. So there's still an element that doesn't want to officially consider this church to be formally an anti-racist organization. Because that's what all the fuss is all about, is there still white people, people of European descent, who still want to hold on to privilege and white supremacy. Not that they consciously decided to do so, they probably just couldn't help that behavior because the way they think, and I have listened to a lot of their reasoning about why they didn't want to adopt it, I just don't find that there's a basis for it. Not if you say that you want to be in that category of people whose life is committed to justice, freedom, democracy, love and all that. You want to be named in the number of those who are advocating for liberation of humanity itself, and especially the original sin of racism that this country institutionalized and is deeply embedded within its systemic systems. If you want to live a life to fight that and eliminate that, then what's the problem with saying we could add this principle as something that we do? You have now done something that other denominations have not done. You have added to who you are in the justice side of your effort to explain yourselves. And so you are now committed to try and be diverse, multiracial, multicultural, anti-racist, anti-oppression, and advocating for a beloved community. That is admirable and a very excellent case study of how you produce good fruit. You've got the premise there to help move the human family to a next level. But now you've got to implement it. First, UU has begun the process, but there's a journey that we all must take to get there. But that's another example, that's another case study of developing fruit, doing the good deeds, doing good works, doing the right thing to help the human agenda to advance. And so I applaud that case study, and I hope all of you take the time to examine yourselves and how you think this principle should be implemented. You have a strategic planning committee here whose task it is to do that, by the way. But I am happy to see you use at that point. There is an organization within the denomination called Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. That's where most black people in the denomination are a part of this group called BUUC. And they are the successor to what we were in the 60s when we were called the Black Unitarian Universalist Caucus and the Black Affairs Council. They are the successors to that. And we appreciate them. They're not our generation. They're younger than I am. Yeah, it's okay. Y'all can chuckle. So we got something here that Unitarian Universalism has contributed to this dialogue, to this conversation about transformation and about eliminating oppression as part of our religious understanding of ourselves and how we want to be and how we want to be known in the human family. What do you want them to say about you when your time comes and somebody asks, what was your legacy? what would you do? What do you do? Surely you must have thought about, what is your legacy? What do you want them to say about you? If you haven't thought about it, please do. Because it's a serious question to help us reconcile what journey we're on and how close we are or how far up we are from its realization. So, the good fruit is something that we all say that we want in our lives and for our lives. But we have to make sacrifices to get there, and we have to do the work, and we have to continue implementation with the deeds. So the future world that Unitarian Universalists want, I think, and other people who are in that part of the spectrum who see religious organizations, especially organizations of faith, whether they are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, etc., does not matter. The symmetry is the common commitment to build a human society. That's what we want from religious communities. And we don't mind all the trimmings and trappings that you sometimes have to allow to get there. But the main thing is to see if we can get there and fight this journey together. But I think we've got some allies in ourselves. I think we have some good souls and we have some good fruit that you in this room are still on that journey. You may get a little tired. Oh, my foots get tired. But I ain't quitting. Fannie Lou didn't quit. No, she didn't quit. Ella Baker didn't quit. Shirley Chisholm didn't quit. You know, Sheila Jackson Lee didn't quit. And you ain't gonna quit. Or let me be precise, you are not going to quit. But if you ever get too tired that you want to say, I need a break, that's fair enough. We all have gotten moments like that, and it's okay to say, I need a break. And that's what will help us all through these difficult days in front of us. So let me just say that this notion of a journey of wholeness that we see in Kemetic religion, that's Ma'at, who was the goddess living around the Old Kingdom, the middle of the Old Kingdom in Egypt, and who was responsible for assessing all these different values, truth and justice and harmony, law, morality. I mean, this sister was super bad. And when it came time for you to transition, she was the one who would weigh the scale of what you have done with these values. Have you done them or not? If you did, you may have an afterlife. Well, I just said, well, I'm not going to worry about that part. I'm just going to look at the harmony that her principles brought to ancient Egypt. And the harmony that comes from serving. We have to be a servant people. That's what those readings were about. They were remarkably similar, if you heard them, in what was being said. And that's because so much of Christian literature has parallels in ancient Egyptian literature and spiritual practice. You don't have to be a spiritual or an agnostic to know that. But it's a part of the heritage of what we live with in this society. We just don't call it that. I would recommend that you read the original African Heritage Bible by Cain Felder, who was the dean of religion at Howard University. And he has some real interesting things to say about all of that. But so I think I'm saying that we also have to be thinkers And we also have to be doers. We must not let ourselves get put in the position of thinking that we have done enough and we can just sit by and think about it. We want to act on what we are thinking. And come November the 5th, we have a decision and a choice to make. Do we want a future? Do we want a multiracial democracy in America where all of us can try to live together in peace and harmony? And you respecting my identity and I'm trying to respect yours? Where we're going to try to live in a world that doesn't have to oppress people and exploit people? That we're trying to build beloved communities for all humanity? That's the journey we're on. That's where we're trying to go. And November the 5th is an opportunity to express that, because there's only one side of the two-sided process that's expressing the desire to do anything like that. The other side will take you back. And you heard people say, we're not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. We're going forward. We're going forward. That's where we're going. And like Sister Michelle said, hope has returned. We've got hope all over again. Thank you very much. You've been a kind listening audience, and I hope that you have heard something somewhere in what I've had to say that was meaningful to you. I have enjoyed seeing you and being with you again. I always enjoy you. When I'm not here, I sometimes see you live on streaming, so I'll be watching what y'all be doing. Thank you very much. Do I see Brother Omawale in the audience? It's not Brother Omawale? It's not. Okay. Excuse me. I thought I had bad eyes, but I thought I had seen him. If it were him, I wanted to acknowledge it. But thank you all for coming, and thank you for listening. And have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. Be loving, but be on the battle, trying to figure out how you're going to do what needs to be done to bring transformation, some good fruit all over the place. Thank you, and peace and blessings and love.